Yo, what up, you degenerate fucks? Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we go balls deep into some shit that'll make your mama blush. Today, we're talking BiggieSmalls, the Notorious B.I.G., the King of New York. You know the name, you've heard the hits, but we're gonna dig into the man behind the fucking legend.
Sounds like a plan.
We're keeping it real raw and uncut, straight from the streets of Brooklyn to the top of the charts.
Biggie's life was a goddamn roller coaster.
No shit, we're using the holy grail of knowledge, Wikipedia, baby. No sugar-coated bullshit, just the facts. Laid bare. Let's cut the crap and dive right into Biggie's world.
Let's do it.
So Biggie, real name Christopher Wallace, was born in Brooklyn in '72. Not exactly a fairy tale beginning. Picture this. Poverty, absent father, slinging crack by the time he's a teenager.
Rough start, man. But here's the thing about Biggie. He was a bright kid, aced English class, went to a Catholic school for a bit. Talk about a walking contradiction.
Seriously, how the hell does a kid with that much potential end up hustling on the streets?
It was a different time, man. The crack epidemic was tearing through communities like a fucking wildfire. For a lot of kids, the streets were the only option they saw.
Damn, that's fucked up. But Biggie didn't let that shit define him, did he? He turned his experiences into art. His music was raw, honest, straight from the gut. That's what made him so relatable.
No doubt. He wasn't afraid to talk about the dark side of life. The violence, the poverty, the struggle. But there was also a lot of joy and celebration in his music. He had this incredible ability to capture the full spectrum of the human experience. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Okay, so how did this kid from Brooklyn go from slinging rock to dropping beats that made the whole world bounce? Take us back to the early days.
Biggie started rapping as a teenager, going by the name C West.
C West. Damn, that's a name I never heard before.
It was his early days, man. He was still finding his voice. But it wasn't until he recorded a demo tape called Microphone Murderer that things started to take off.
Microphone Murderer. Holy shit, that's a badass title.
Right. It caught the attention of Mr. C, a DJ who was plugged into the hip-hop scene. He was the one who introduced Biggie to Puff Daddy, who was working at Uptown Records at the time.
Puffy, the man with a Midas touch. That dude could turn anything into gold.
Exactly. Puffy saw something special in Biggie and signed him to Uptown. That's when Biggie got his first taste of the music industry, doing remixes for artists like Mary J. Blige.
Those are some fire tracks back in the day. Real Love. What's the 4-1? Damn, I remember bumping those in my hoop day.
Those features put Biggie on the radar, but then shit hit the fan at Uptown. Puffy got fired.
Classic music industry bullshit. Those suits are always screwing over the real talent.
Word. But Puffy wasn't about to let some corporate asshats stop him. He started his own label, Bad Boy Records. And guess who he brought along for the ride?
Biggie, of course. The dynamic duo was born.
You got it. And that's when the Notorious B.I.G., as we know him, truly emerged.
Now we're talking. So let's get into Biggie's debut album, Ready to Die. This shit was a game changer. It dropped in '94 and blew everyone's fucking minds. It wasn't just an album. It was a statement.
Ready to Die was a masterpiece, man. Raw, honest, unflinching in its depiction of street life. It was like a movie playing out in your ears.
Totally. Tracks like Juicy and Big Papa became instant anthems. They still get the party started today.
Those tracks showcased Biggie's range, his ability to move between the gritty and the smooth, the streetwise and the playful. He could spit fire about the harsh realities of the ghetto, but he could also lay down some smooth-ass shit that made the ladies swoon.
But Ready to Die wasn't all party vibes and bitches. There were some dark-ass tracks on there, too, like Suicidal Thoughts. That shit was heavy as fuck.
Suicidal Thoughts was a punch to the gut, man. It revealed the emotional toll of Biggie's life, the demons he was battling. It was one of the most honest and disturbing songs about suicide ever recorded.
It's like he was looking into the abyss, and the abyss was looking right back at him. Heavy shit.
The song was controversial as hell. Some folks accused Biggie of glorifying suicide. But I think he was just being brutally honest about his struggles. He wasn't afraid to show his vulnerability, which was rare in hip-hop, especially back then.
He wasn't afraid to keep it real, even when it was painful.
Yeah.
That's what made him so powerful.
Ready to Die was a massive success. It put Biggie on the map as a major force in East Coast hip-hop. It helped shift the spotlight back to New York, which had been kind of overshadowed by the West Coast scene.
Right. The East Coast was back in the game, and Biggie was leading the charge.
Ready to Die was a landmark album in hip-hop history, period. It marked the beginning of Biggie's reign as the King of New York, And with that crown came a whole lot of drama.
Oh, shit. You're talking about the East Coast, West Coast beef, right? That shit was a whole other level of crazy.
Yeah, man. The rivalry between Biggie and Tupac, the diss tracks, the media frenzy, it got ugly.
It was a full-blown hip-hop war. And unfortunately, there were casualties.
No doubt. This is where things get real heavy, and we need to tread carefully.
For sure. But it's a crucial part of Biggie's story. And we can't just sweep it under the rug, so let's dive into this mess. What the fuck went down between Biggie and Tupac?
All right, so to understand the beef, we got to rewind to 94. Tupac got jumped and shot 5 times in a recording studio lobby. He lost a shit ton of jewelry and was seriously pissed off.
Damn, talk about bad blood.
Tupac pointed fingers at Biggie and Puffy, claiming they set him up, but they denied any involvement.
So this robbery basically ignited the whole East Coast, West Coast war.
It was a major catalyst, no doubt. The media ran with the story, fueling the flames, and the tension between Biggie and Tupac escalated quickly.
Those vultures love to stir shit up, don't they?
Always, man. They saw a good story and milked it for all it was worth, and then you had the whole record label rivalry, Bad Boy versus Death Row. It was like a fucking powder keg waiting to explode.
So what was Biggie's role in all of this? Was he really out to get Tupac?
It's hard to say for sure. Biggie never publicly admitted to any involvement in the robbery, and there's no concrete evidence to prove otherwise. But the diss tracks started flying back and forth, and things got real nasty.
Oh yeah, those diss tracks were brutal. Tupac's Hit 'Em Up was a straight-up assassination attempt.
Oh.
On Biggie's character.
No hold barred, man. Tupac went all in, accusing Biggie of sleeping with his girlfriend, Faith Evans, and basically threatening his life.
And that's cold-blooded. Did Biggie ever respond to that shit?
He addressed the beef in a few tracks, but he never released a full-blown diss track aimed directly at Tupac. Some people say he was taking the high road. Others think he was just playing it smart.
Maybe he knew things were getting out of control.
Could be. But regardless of who started it, the beef had a devastating impact on both Biggie and Tupac.
Tragically, both of them ended up dead before they could settle their differences. Tupac in '96, Biggie just 6 months later.
2 of the greatest rappers of all time, gone way too soon because of the senseless beef. It's a goddamn shame.
It's like a Shakespearean tragedy, man. 2 kings brought down by their own ambition and the poisonous influence of their entourages.
And the media played a role too, let's not forget that. They sensationalized the rivalry, creating this narrative of East Coast versus West Coast, turning fans against each other. It was a fucking mess.
All right, let's move on to something a little less heavy. Let's talk about Biggie's second album, Life After Death. This shit dropped just 2 weeks after his murder. What a mindfuck.
Life After Death is a complex and powerful album, man. It's a double album, packed with tracks. Almost too much to unpack in one go. It's like a roller coaster of emotions. You got the bangers, the introspective tracks, the storytelling, the braggadocious.
Yeah, it's a wild ride. I remember listening to it for the first time after Biggie died.
Yeah.
It was surreal, man. Like, he was still here, spitting fire from beyond the grave.
It was a bittersweet experience, for sure. You could hear Biggie's growth as an artist on this album. He was experimenting with the different sounds, collaborating with different producers. It felt like he was taking his crown as the king of New York and aiming for something even bigger, something global.
Yeah, you can hear that ambition in the music. Tracks like Hypnotize and Kick in the Door. There's a real swagger, confidence that he's on top of the world.
Exactly. But then you've got tracks like What's Beef and Niggas Bleed, where he's reflecting on the street life, the violence, the paranoia that came with that world. He wasn't shying away from the darkness.
And let's not forget Money Mo Problems. That beat is infectious, even with the heavy message behind it.
Right. Money Mo Problems was Biggie at his best. He could take a serious topic, like the pressures and pitfalls of fame and fortune, and turn it into a fucking party anthem.
It's like he was predicting his own future in a way. The more successful he became, the more problems seemed to follow.
It's eerie, man. Like, he knew that success came with a price.
All right, so we've talked about Biggie's music. But what about the man behind the mic? What was he like in real life?
Biggie was a complex dude. He was a charmer, no doubt. He had this magnetic personality that drew people to him. He could be funny, he could be intimidating, he could be vulnerable.
Sounds like my kind of guy.
He was also a notorious ladies' man. His lyrics were full of tales of his conquests, and he definitely lived up to his reputation.
It was Big Papa, right?
But despite his playboy image, Biggie was also a devoted father and a loyal friend. He had this soft side that he didn't always show to the public.
Yeah, you can hear that in his music, too. He wasn't just some gangster rapper spitting rhymes about bitches and guns. He had depth, man. He was a poet, a
Yeah.
storyteller, a philosopher in his own right.
Absolutely. Biggie was able to connect with people on a deep emotional level. He spoke to the human experience, the struggles, the joys, the complexities of life.
So let's talk about Biggie's legacy. How has he influenced hip-hop and the world beyond music?
Biggie's impact is undeniable. He changed the game, man. His flow, his lyrical style, his storytelling, it's all been hugely influential on generations of rappers. He's been cited as an inspiration by everyone, from Jay-Z to Kendrick Lamar.
He's considered one of the greatest rappers of all time, and for good reason.
He had this raw honesty in his lyrics, this ability to make you feel like you were right there with him in the streets of Brooklyn. He could be both vulnerable and badass, introspective and celebratory. That's a rare combination.
And his music still sounds fresh today, even after all these years. It's timeless.
His influence can be heard in everything from the trap beats of today to the conscious lyrics of modern hip-hop artists. Biggie's DNA is all over the genre.
Okay, we've talked about Ready to Die and Life After Death, but Biggie also has a bunch of posthumous albums. What's the deal with those? Are they worth checking out?
The posthumous albums are a mixed bag, man. Some of them are decent. Some of them are kind of cash grabs. Born Again, which came out in '99, features a lot of guest appearances from artists like Eminem and Snoop Dogg. Duets, the final chapter from 2005, takes a similar approach, with collaborations from Jay-Z, Tupac,
Yeah.
and even Bob Marley.
Like Bob Marley? That's a wild combo. Did they really have Biggie rapping over some reggae beats?
Yeah, it's a weird one. It's not exactly essential Biggie, but it's an interesting listen.
So what's the final verdict on the posthumous albums? Are they worth a listen for hardcore Biggie fans?
I'd say check them out if you're curious.
Yeah.
But don't expect them to be on the same level as the studio albums.
Fair enough. All right, let's wrap up this deep dive with some final thoughts on Biggie's legacy. Yo, assholes, we're back for the final round of this Biggie deep dive. So we've talked about his life, his music, his death, the East Coast, West Coast bullshit, all that heavy shit. Now I'm curious, what do you think is the most important part of Biggie's legacy? What's going to keep his name alive for generations to come?
That's a tough one, man. Biggie's legacy is like a fucking diamond. It's got so many facets. It's his music, his lyrics, his storytelling, the way he impacted hip-hop culture, his style, that larger-than-life persona. He was a force of nature, and you can still feel his influence today.
For sure. But if I had to pick one thing, it's his authenticity.
Yeah.
Biggie never pretended to be anything he wasn't. He was raw. He was real. He was unapologetically himself.
Couldn't agree more. He didn't shy away from the darkness. He owned that shit, the violence, the poverty, the drug dealing, the pain. It was all there in his music, but he also celebrated the joy, the love, the triumphs.
It was the real deal, man. Like what people connected with.
He wasn't just rapping about street life. He was living it. And you could hear that in his voice, his flow, his fucking lyrics. He was a storyteller, a poet, a goddamn chronicler of his times.
And that's why his music still hits hard today, right? Because it's timeless. It's about the human experience, the struggles and the joys of life.
Exactly. Biggie's music went beyond hip-hop, man. It spoke to something universal, something that connected with people from all walks of life.
He was a voice for the voiceless, a symbol of hope for those who came from nothing and dreamed of something more.
His story reminds you that anything is possible, that even when shit is fucked up, there's always a chance for redemption.
Biggie's life may have been cut short, but his legacy will live on forever.
He was a legend, a king, a true icon. His music will keep inspiring generations to come.
Damn right. BiggieSmalls, the Notorious B.I.G. Rest in peace, motherfucker. You were one of a kind.
And to all you listeners out there, keep Biggie's legacy alive. Bump his music, learn his lyrics, share his story. And never forget the power of being real. Peace out.